Good evening. Welcome to tonight's ASES Virtual Fellows Core Curriculum Series. This session is part of the Practice Management Series. The overall series is a byproduct of Dr. Bill Levine, past president of the Shoulder and Elbow Society, as well as Mark Frankel, our current president. Tonight's sessions on work-life integration, we have the distinct honor and privilege of having past president of the ASES, Dr. Fran Como, as our moderator. And with that, I will hand over the program to her. If you have any questions, concerns, please don't hesitate to use the chat room. Dr. Como?
Thank you very much, Rajan. Welcome, everyone. We're happy to have you. We have a great program. I think you're going to get a lot of benefit out of it. I think you basically need to understand what our purpose is first. It's a little bit a different kind of a topic. It's basically what we're trying to do is open your eyes with regard to how to blend a very rigorous career with family life and life outside of orthopedics. And basically what we're want to try to relate to you is how to corral this and have you control your career and your life as opposed to it controlling you. Right now, I'm sure you're focusing on just getting a job. I just need to get a job. Where am I going to be? Who am I going to be with? And rightfully so. And I think the best advice that I could give you at this point in time is to make the best decision for yourself at this point in time with the right understanding that the average orthopedist moves 2.7 times in their career. So don't stress too much about it. I know that's easier said than done, but not everybody gets to be Derek Jeter. You get your dream job right out of high school. You have a Hall of Fame career at the same institution. And then at your last at bat, you hit a game-winning walk-off base hit. You know, it doesn't always work that way, but you make the best choice for yourself at this point in time. So to help you with those decisions, we have a great panel today. April Armstrong as the chief of the shoulder service and chair at Penn State. Ilya Voloshin is at the University of Rochester, is the director of the shoulder and elbow division. And Alex Creighton at the University of North Carolina is the chief of the sports medicine service. And they have graciously spent a lot of time and energy and effort reflecting on their own lives and relate to us how they kind of try to harmoniously blend a strenuous career with their families and outside life for your benefit. So there's obviously no one universal correct answer to this, but there is a right answer for you. And in order to find that right answer, you really need to know and understand what your goals are. You don't know how to get somewhere. You can't get somewhere if you don't know where you're going. So you kind of have to decide, am I the person who likes academia and research and teaching, and I really enjoy that 15 minutes behind the podium? Or am I more concerned with, I just really want to work really hard and make a lot of money as soon as I can and retire early? Or, is it lifestyle? Do you want a salaried position so that you can control your life the way you want it? So in order to understand where you want to go, you need to understand what your goals are. And we're starting to kind of put that together now. So the way we're going to do that now is we're going to have the 3 PowerPoint presentations from each of our 3 panelists. And then I'd like you to think about, stir up some questions in your mind. This is really for you. And we would like you to ask anything that you have on your mind, and we're open to any thoughts that you might have. So with that, we'd like to first. I'd like to thank Stryker for sponsoring this. I think we have a video that we wanted to show for Stryker. We appreciate their efforts in sponsoring this series. Okay, April, would you start for us?
Sure. So good evening, everyone. So I'm not seeing the slides just quite yet, Fran. So if we want to just move
okay.
forward.
Well,
You just have to hit, Fran, Dr. Como, you just have to start the slideshow.
And I think the Stryker video is the first slide there, so we can listen to that.
So do you see that? I see it, and they were seeing it before. Or let's say resume share. Are you seeing it now?
we're seeing the initial slide, and now you just have to, I think, do slideshow.
You'll hit the button on your icon, I think, right where that cursor is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing that and I see it, but you're not seeing it.
Fran,
We're
there's
seeing it, but it's not
CD
advanced.
enable editing at the top. You have to hit that enable editing.
Okay. How did I know? April, you want to take this over right now? Do you think you can do it?
Yep,
Go right ahead.
okay. Oh, just a second here. Oh. I lost the slide deck again. If we could just maybe share again. Okay, so you'll advance them then, Fran? So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. It's nice to be able to share our reflections on you. So I've been asked to give my 7 key strategies to the work-life integration. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've got it all figured out, but I can at least give you some thoughts and things that I've reflected on. And so first I wanted to just explain who we are. So we are the proud parents of 2 beautiful girls, Grace and Claire, and they are off-road mountain bikers as well as skiers. And so they certainly are very active and they keep us quite busy. Next slide, please. And my husband, he's a physical therapist. He works at our same institution. He works 1 floor below me when I see patients in clinic. Next slide, please. But at home, he is also a husband, a father. He mountain bikes as well. He loves to brew beer, and he skis, camps, hikes, and he does most of the cooking in the family. Next. And then I've had a number of roles, leadership roles, as well as doing my shoulder and elbow job. Next. But then at home, I'm also a wife, a mother. I enjoy all the outdoor activities as well, but I do also like to sew purses out of old clothes. And this is a hedgehog costume that I sewed for my daughter. I used to sew all of their Halloween costumes. Next slide, please. And so we both really identify with our work. And so we are very much feel that we have identified with the caregiver concept, and we really we get a lot of satisfaction in providing care and help to others. We really enjoy our professional relationships and our personal friendships at work, and we find it obviously very mentally engaging, and it's a good obviously it supports our family from a financial perspective as well. Next. But we also have our home identity. And so this is really about caring for our family. So we're the taxi service. And now that my daughter is 16, she has her own license. So that's been a huge benefit. So now she's the taxi service. But we also obviously have all the normal activities that you have to take care of at home. And we try to plan all of our activities around our events. And a lot of them end up being in the outdoors. Next slide, please. So I really started to think about this a few years back. I was an associate CMO for all of our outpatient surgical practices. So that was overseeing 17 practices. So I reported to the CMO, Fred Michel, and he had come to us from another institution, and he was retiring a second time. And I went up to him and I said, Fred, I said, why did you come back? You'd already retired months. And why did you think you needed to come back? And he said, well, I tried to retire once, but realized I didn't have any friends outside of work, and I didn't do anything else other than work. So this time I'll do it right 4 years later. And I'm so grateful I actually heard this, because I sat there going, oh my gosh, that's me. And so I thought that's going to be a problem. So I think take this time in this next hour to really reflect on what people are telling you, because something might ring a bell for you. And this is your time right now, this next hour, to reflect on you. Next one. So I think the core issue that I realized is that our job is fundamentally incompatible with having a work-life balance. And you notice that we talk at work-life integration. It's not necessarily a balance. Next, please. And so my husband jokes that we're balanced together because I'm heavy on work, light on life, and he's heavy on life and light on work. So together we work extremely well and have great balance. Next. And so, like I said, you really do have to take time to reflect. And it's important for you to think about how you use your time and what's critical for you. And you have to think of it from both a personal and your career development aspects. Next. And so here's my 7 key strategies. Next. So I had to face the truth and I had to realize that my life is my responsibility. And I think what I just talked to you from Fred Michel is really what kind of stirred me to start thinking about this. And so proper balance in my life had to become a priority. And I realized that no one's as invested in your balance as you are. And that if you don't design your own life, then someone else is going to do it for you. And then you really had to start thinking about how you're going to set your own responsibilities and your boundaries. Next. My spouse is really key. He accepts that I work long hours. He knows that my hours are unreliable. And my family understand that I love them and I would always put them first. And this really became highlighted about 4 years ago when I had just been finishing up a total shoulder replacement. And it had been a really crazy day. I had actually gone in early to see a trauma that I added on. So it was like really crazy. And just as I was finishing up that case, my pager kept going off and the nurse said, you must go to ED now. And so I went down to the ED and the ED doc met me. He knew what door I usually went into. And he said, April, your daughter's not doing well. And she essentially was hypotensive and unresponsive. And she would end up being in a coma for 3 days because she had meningitis. And so she's doing well now. It took her about a year to actually get better. But what I realized after that, when I had time to reflect, is that work still went on without me. And I was not so critical to work. People picked up the trauma case that I was supposed to be doing. People figured out where the rest of my cases were going that day. So it really kind of put things into perspective for me. And I've had also a colleague unfortunately pass away. And I think one of the things, she was an anesthesiologist. One of the things I realized when I went into work after she had passed away is that it was like nothing had happened. It's not that we're not important, but things can still happen without you around. And so my family also, though, understands that I do love my job very much and I'm very passionate about it. And I've had times where I've had to tell my daughters, this is kind of the deal. This is what I agreed to do. And people need my help right now and I need to go in and I can't spend, my time with you at this moment. But they seem to understand that and we just talk around it. And I think one of the things that we've really learned is that my family can still live life without me around. And that sounds terrible, but what I really mean is that when I'm not around, they still do all their fun things that they want to do and they don't wait around for me. And so then I don't have to feel guilty about the fact that I'm not there. Next slide, please. And so our balancers are that my husband, after my daughter was sick, he started working 3 days a week, which was huge for us. So we're very fortunate to be able to do that. We've had a great babysitter. She's known our kids since they were just infants. We do all of our outdoor activities together. And then we really do focus on quality rather than quantity of time. Next. And then we had this when I'm on call rules. So it's a mutual respect. So if they're out having fun and right now they're skiing when I'm busy, then I don't get, I'm not jealous or I don't get upset about that. And they don't resent the fact that I'm at home doing work or I'm on call. We typically do a year review and just kind of see where we're at with our family and what our goals and things that we want to do. We live within our means. And then we have separate hobbies. So I don't like beer and my husband doesn't like to sew. So we can do our own things. And we also try to have dinner at the table where you can have some really good discussions. Next. I think one thing that I've really learned is the value of delegation. And there's a whole science and checkbook lists and ways to do this, but I think it's really important for you to use your team. And so I've learned things through my administrative assistant. So she books all my flights, my hotels, all my meetings. She pulls all articles I have to do for research or book chapters. Those are things that I don't need to spend my time doing. I've got an OR scheduler, a PA who helps with the clinic work. And then one thing my administrative sister really pointed out to me is as you get further in your career, you're asked to do all kinds of letters and P&T letters and projects, and there's all these work regulations. And so she just schedules time for me to do it on the schedule. So if something comes through, I send it to her. She finds time on my calendar. My job is to make sure I get it done. If she found the time to get the time on my calendar to do it, I make sure I get it done. And so now I don't have to worry about it. I used to carry all this stuff around with me and then, figure out when I was going to do it between cases or, after clinic. And then things that are important to me get regular calendar time. So one example for that would be my research time. Next. And so I think this is a great saying. So the secret of success lies not in doing your own work, but in recognizing the right man, and I would say, or woman, to do it. Next. I also had to recognize the influence of technology, and I think this is even worse now because of Zoom. I mean, we are so connected all the time, and so I think you really have to set your own boundaries and recognize how it's affecting your ability to spend time with your family. Next. And so my rule is work at work. So I don't sign charts or look at email. I put my phone down, and when I'm on vacation, I don't look at things, or I set aside 2 hours in that week to look at something just to catch up a little bit. And if it's important enough, they know that they're going to call me on my cell phone. But then when I am at work, so when I'm on call, I stay at the hospital, I get work done at that time. I typically get work done during meetings. And then if I'm at my office, I close my door if I really need to get something done. Next. I also had to deal with the role of gender. So I would say that work-life conflict is not gender specific. There's plenty of research to show that it's not, but we do have this social norms that we still have to manage. And men and women handle work-life balance sometimes differently. Next. And one thing that I realized is both of our families are very traditional in the sense that our mother stayed home. They didn't work outside of the home. And so they really struggled with the fact that I wanted a house cleaning service. They thought that was horrible. Why couldn't I do that myself? At school, I wasn't necessarily known. My husband was known more than me, and it at first was really bothering me, but I finally had to just let it go. That was on me. It was not on them. And I just had to make a conscious sense of letting it go. And it actually really made things a lot easier for me. Next. I also think you have to think about your chronic lack of time. So, and this is for you to also think about things that you're doing not at work. So what are your activities outside of work? So do you have a long drive to work? Do you do volunteer activity, your housework, your yard work? So really figuring out where you spend your time, and then realize that your goal is not to achieve what society expects you to do, but then to balance your own happiness and what works for you. Next. And then I think this is one of the important strategies for me is leaning into relationships. So we have no extended family close by, but we're very careful about scheduling time with our friends. And these are friends either from our school or church or from work. We work with good people. We enjoy spending time with people that we work with, and really minimizing screen time and maximizing people time. And I really credit my husband for really pushing this, because sometimes I just want to sit on the couch and not do anything, but he'll be like, nope, let's go call somebody, let's go do something. And he's always so right. It's so much better to spend that people time than that screen time. Next. And then this is a great study. So this is a Harvard study where they followed over 700 men over many years since 1938. And every 2 years, they interviewed the wives, the children, did psychosocial questionnaires, looked at all their medical records. And their question was, what was the secret to happiness? Next. And so what they learned, it was that it was not about wealth or fame or working harder. So the clearest message over 75 years, next, was really about good relationships, that good relationships kept us healthy and happier. And it wasn't just that you had a lot of friends. It was that you had real good, deep, trusting relationships, period. And that's what made people happier. Next. So these are essentially my strategies, and these aren't going to be necessarily your strategies. But I think the important part of it is for you to really reflect and think about the things that you are doing consciously or not consciously to help you with that whole concept of work-life integration. And that would be it. Thank you.
That was wonderful, April. That's the second time I heard you give that lecture, and I like it even better this time. It just doesn't get any more valuable than that. All of the points about family relationships and delegating out there with the yes on your lips when you should be saying no, and, realizing, what are your boundaries? What can I do? And what should I be doing? And that's very, very, very valuable. Excellent job. And I think we'll take questions probably at the end. Is that how you want to do that, Ranjan?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Then we'll continue on, and we'll now go with Dr. Voloshin from the University of Rochester, who's going to give his point of view. Ilya, you with us? Do you hear him? I don't hear him.
No, I don't see him either on the call.
No.
Can you advance to Alex's
I
and then come
certainly-
back to him?
I certainly will.
All right, so I think April did a great job starting off. So this is work-life balance, but this is kind of what I've learned in 17 years into my practice, and obviously still learning. Next slide. Again, I'd like to thank Stryker for this. Next slide. My disclosures. Next slide. So I'm still a work in progress. I'm far from perfect. I've worked hard, but it's extremely difficult to be a triple threat: an expert surgeon, excellent educator, high-level researcher, and for me, also take care of athletics at UNC. So that's another time issue. And to see what is in front of your nose requires constant struggle. So it's always there, and it's not going away, and it's going to be there when you get back too. Next slide. So I think this is one of those things where it's really important to listen to your mentors and teachers, ask them questions, listen to them. They've typically been there and done that. Next slide. Your practice when you first start in your first year or two will be the most frustrating. It typically will take 5 to 10 years to build a quality practice. You really can't expect your first year to be just like your mentors or where you did your fellowship who had been in practice for 5, 10, 15, 20, or 30 years. You can try to cut corners, shake and bake, have marginal indications and be successful, but excellent requires time, perseverance, and doing what's right. Next slide. So in general, and it's easier said than done, a balanced life professionally and personally. I think you want to try to develop interest outside of medicine, makes you more interesting, provides a diversion, allows you to develop friendships outside of your medical sphere. And again, family first. If you're happy at home, you're typically going to be happy at work, and vice versa. Next slide. And then you really need to also know what works for you emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And that's a very personal thing. Next slide. So I'm going to tell you a personal experience, and this is about me. When I was 40, I had a 2-year history of progressive low back pain, primarily on my SI joint. With what I do, I have access to great PT and strength and conditioning and massage and dry needling. My pain was worsening. I started to have night pain, and then my wife kind of says, you're still taking care of everyone else except yourself. So click there. And, this is a saying that was, through all sports and stuff growing up, you're a smart kid, but you're playing dumb. And, this is a repeated theme that I sometimes have to deal with. So next slide. So the next week I had an MRI scheduled, and the technologist says, hey, Dr. Creighton, we need to start an IV and give you some dye. And, everyone knows what dye means. I either have a tumor or an infection. So next slide. So I run to my office, I pull up my MRI, which I know you're not supposed to do, right? But my first call is not to my wife, it's to my spine surgeon and oncologist, and I didn't know what this thing was in my back. Next slide. So I got a CT and biopsy, you know, click there. So I'm not going to die. I have a nerve sheath tumor, a schwannoma. It's probably been there a long time, but I need to have surgery. So next slide. So, you know, April kind of mentioned this a little bit, but, you know, your family and friends are who take care of you, not your place of employment, and certainly not UNC for me. Next slide. You know, life went on. UNC didn't miss a beat. My patients were taken care of either by my partners or just like a lot of medical places, they have, you know, we have options right down the road, up the street, south, north. And, you know, you kind of have pressure to go back. I went back to work in 4 weeks, which, you know, after a spine fusion was not a very good idea. So again, click there, you know, click. Yep. Again, there's that sign again. I'm not very smart. And then, you know, really for your personal life, you want to tell your spouse, significant other, and children every day that you love them. You need to make time for your loved ones, cultivate your friendships, and call your friends and stay in touch. Next slide. You know, life passes quickly. And again, when I was putting this talk together, you know, I mean, my kids have just changed so much, and it goes by in a blink of an eye or a snap of a finger. Next slide. I was fortunate enough to go on a traveling fellowship through ASSM, and Ed Woitis was our godfather. And he basically said, you know, when you are able to take your wife or your kids to these conferences or meetings, you know, they'll appreciate it, and you'll enjoy having them with you. So for the past 5 years, I've tried to do that. Next slide. You know, I was able to take my daughter to the national championship that we won. I took my son to Magellan and my mom and dad to Scotland. My wife she definitely goes to a meeting here and there. Took my daughter again, the whole family, and we had a whole family trip to Esca and Milan, but, you know, COVID canceled that like it did a lot of other things. And my kids, and particularly my daughter and son, they still talk about these things. So, and I realize you're not going to be able to do it on every trip, but just have that in your back of your mind. They'll have a greater appreciation for what you do, and you get to meet some other people along the way. Next slide. And again, from a work start practice, you know, you want to start your practice as you mean to go, you know, get it in writing or a contract. You want to develop your team. And again, April did a very nice job of this, you know, your administrative assistant, your PA, nurse practitioner, athletic trainer, OR scheduler, research assistant, partners your division. You need to delegate these job duties. It increases your efficiency. You want to treat everyone with respect and say thank you. And you want to reevaluate yearly, you know, have a 360-degree review, outside input from your mentor or coach. You want to do your retreat. It can be a dinner or an outing. And you really have to ask yourself every year, what do you or we want, and how are we or I doing? Next slide. You know, this is like embedded us in Carolina, you know, the Carolina way, but it's really more Dean Smith of having responsibility to do what is right, innovation to find a better way, service, put others first, and excellence by working hard, playing smart, and winning together as your team. Next slide. Tim Grover, an elite performance coach. There are really no secrets. There are no tricks. Ask yourself where you are now and where you want to be instead. Ask yourself, what are you willing to do to get there? There are no shortcuts. And then Tom Hanks, you know, of course, this is hard. If it were easy, everyone would do it. The hard is what makes it great. Next slide. So my conclusions, you know, family first. When you're with your family, be present and with them. Power down, limit your work distractions, and try to include your family at times with work-related events, activities, or conferences. Start your practice as you mean to go. Remember, time passes quickly. Use it wisely. It's okay to say no occasionally, maybe not initially, but occasionally. And then, you know, be the person your dog thinks you are. I have 3 dogs, and if ever they think I'm the best thing since sliced bread, and we all know that's not necessarily true, but you know, just have that in your back of your mind. Thank you very much.
That was really, really great, Alex. Really precious. Yes, be the person your dog thinks you are. That doesn't get any better than that. That's really great, and I really appreciate your bringing in your so much of your personal life and sharing that with us. I think it should be very powerful and beneficial for the fellows.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Now let's see. Did Ilya ever come back, or he's
Can you
going
guys hear
back.
me?
He's back.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah,
Okay,
let me
great.
just get back to where you were.
Sorry about that. This is part of work-life integration. I'm on vacation with family, and I didn't want to say no to you, Fran, or to
Oh,
Ranjan.
gee, I'm sorry.
So I had to
wish
make it
had known.
happen.
I hate to do that to you.
This is good. They assured me my internet service is going to be perfect. I even paid extra for it, and
It's probably a Russian server, Ilya.
they're hacking in.
Okay, Ilya, we're back for you. Great.
Okay, great. Well, you know, originally the title of this session was supposed to be work-life balance. And I'm going to be a little bit repetitive with other speakers because you never really reach balance, or balance can be very different for all of us. So it's more of work-life integration. And I think every speaker kind of told their personal story as far as what works for them and how they find what I call harmony in their life, because that's really what's important, is to find harmony with your family, with your work, and the two really become interrelated. So I'll tell you my personal story, how it works with my family and my job and my career. So Stryker is a sponsor for this core curriculum session. Next slide, my disclosures. Next slide, please. So just a little introduction, my family. My wife is Sana, who I met when I was a resident in Rochester, New York. And two of my kids, Maya is 15 years old and Mark is 13. Next slide. So what do we do? What do we do with family? I mean, vacations, we take vacations 2 times a year. And that's kind of where we just spend time with each other. There's no other agendas. Next slide. Another big thing in our family is squash. So both of my kids play squash, and I'm a huge squash enthusiast. And I played tennis actually growing up in Russia. And then when I came to the States, I picked up squash, and that's been my sport. And that's kind of where I blow off steam when I leave work, is on the squash court. And both of my kids really got into it, and they compete nationally, and we travel basically year round to these competitions. And that's really became my responsibility. I take time off work to spend time with my kids, going to these competitions all over the country and even internationally. And it's amazing how much you learn from your kids when you go on a 6-hour drive to Westchester, to New York City from Rochester, New York. I mean, they share all kinds of stories with you, what's important in their life. And I would have never known that if I didn't have opportunity to do that with them. Next slide. Another time off that we have as a family is we have a lake house, and we spend a lot of time in the water doing wake surfing and all kinds of water sports. We do bonfires on the shore of the lake, and we roast marshmallows and tell each other stories. Next slide. And we also love to ski. Skiing is more of a recreational activity. Even though Isana doesn't ski, she's a good sport, and she always finds things to do, and do maybe a little shopping and spend some time in the spa while we're on the slopes ripping it up. So is there such thing as perfect balance? I'm not sure it exists. And I think the sooner we realize it, the better we as surgeons or physicians will learn to cope and find mechanisms how to make it work in our families. Everyone's path to finding that balance is different. And the sooner we realize that it's not going to be a perfect balance and you're going to find compromises, the better we're going to be able to adapt to that environment. And as Alfred Musset, the French poet, said, the perfection does not exist. To understand it is the triumph of human intelligence. To desire to possess it is the most dangerous kind of madness. So I think it's very true in anything we do. So how it works in my family, I think it's not a balance. We find a harmony in how to manage this. And I think we as physicians, we signed up for this, and we knew it was going to be hard. We study more, we work harder than many other people in other professions. We delay our income, which results in potential losses down the line fiscally. We have less time for hobbies and interests outside of medicine. And we accept that. We accept that up front because we love what we do. We accept the sacrifice. And I think striving for perfection to find that work-life balance, looking at our friends or colleagues in other professions, is just not realistic. I have a lot of friends who are in business world, and sometimes they say, hey, let's meet for lunch today. And they have 1 hour lunch, and they don't realize that I barely have time to swallow my sandwich in between my patients. So I think it's a little bit different kind of view on life, but we knew about that. I think the sooner we realize that this is our reality, the better we're going to be able to cope with it. Next slide. So some of the key things is we need to make sure our stakeholders, meaning our family members, buy into this system, and it's important to bring it up front. So my wife Sana is amazing, and she is really a foundation that keeps kind of the structure standing in terms of our family. She's educated. She got an MBA, and what I say is she's a CEO of the household. Before we had kids, she really had that business vein beating in her, and she was involved in different companies in marketing and sales, and was really leading in her companies in her roles. And we had many trips that she won for the work that she has done. But once we had kids, she really decided to stay at home and focus on raising the kids. And it's not that it can't be done with both parents working. It's just what worked for our family, and I think it made things a lot easier. Next slide. So we were sitting in a cafe in Boston, and I saw this painting, and I got it for her because it represented kind of her role in the family. Basically can focus on orthopedics, and Asana manages kind of everything else. There's a study at Harvard that showed that stay-at-home parent, if you calculate all the things that they do in terms of just logistics of running the household, it amounts to about $162,000 a year, which is substantial considering all the other professions that could pay you a very similar amount of money, and you have a full-time job. So next slide. So I think it's critical for us as orthopedic surgeons to be successful, because our success at work will kind of bleed into our life at home in terms of satisfaction, in terms of being confident, in terms of making sure that the environment to thrive is there, whether it's family life or whether it's your career. And I think it's important to put in the time early to set yourself on the right path, because unless you put in the work early, your pathway may divert so far, it's going to be hard to jump back on that pathway, let's say, of academics, if it's your career path, or entrepreneurship within medicine. I think it's important to put in the time early to set yourself on that path. And I think that's pretty critical. And that's where the sacrifice may have to occur. Next slide. So it's interesting. One of my teachers in my residency told me that, Ilya, you can be good at 2 out of 3 things. You can be a good surgeon, good researcher, or a good father. And I know it's a very controversial statement, but when I look at the members of our department, I kind of agreed with it. Now, I'll tell you, this statement cost me potentially an academic job very early in my career when I interviewed with people, because I used that in the conversation. And And the person who interviewed me really didn't like that. But I'll tell you that when I look back at my life, and I don't think I think it's very challenging. Very few people I think can do it. For myself, I realized that I'll never be R01 researcher writing grants and making some big studies where I would run them. I do a lot of research and I public clinical studies, but I'll never be the kind of researcher that writes a grant and runs a big clinical trial. So for me, I focused on 2 out of these 3 things. Again, this definitely is a controversial, and it's definitely something that some people might not agree, but that's what worked for me. Next slide. So again, it's important to have a sense of accomplishment from your work, and it's important for you to feel like you're an expert in your field. If we achieve that, if we interact with our colleagues, if we get invited to lectures, feeling good about your workday will make you being more engaged with your family. When you come home, you feel good about yourself. You're more open for further interaction with your family members. And it kind of, your satisfaction from work bleeds into your family life. Next. And last thing I want to say is about work-life integration. And I think my lecture today out of Naples, Florida, where I'm with family on vacation is a perfect testament for that, especially in the current state of technology, which seems to be failing me today a little bit, but with the ability to connect from anywhere, I think we can do a lot of things and combine them, work and family at the same time. I actually don't turn off my cell phone on vacation. I check my emails fairly constantly, and I don't feel like it takes away actually from experiencing the vacation. And I think if we don't adapt this ability to be able to do multiple things at the same time, it's not really multitasking, it's more of a serial tasking. You just find a way to spend your time more efficiently. You can still go and enjoy your time with family, but then if there's a break, you can answer your emails, and you just burn up on the re-entry, so to speak, a little bit less when you get back to work. So I like to be able to combine those things, and this way I don't miss potential opportunities that may be important for my career. And that seems to be working well with my family. Next slide. So any regrets, Isana always plays me this video often that, not often, but when she's upset at me, she plays a video of Mark, my son, running around me while I'm doing some paper or doing some work. And he's constantly grabbing my hand, trying to get my attention. And I don't pay attention to him during that moment. So if I had any regrets, recently we started watching videos of our kids when they were very little. And I always thought that, they're really going to need me when they start playing sports or when they start going to school where, I'll be able to really contribute to their development. And nowadays, when I look at their videos when they're very little, sometimes somewhere deep in me, I feel maybe a little bit of a regret. Maybe I miss those times. And now I realize that those days are gone. And I feel that maybe I missed it a little bit and I wished I had experienced more with that. So that's, if I had to come up with a grad, that would be the one. Thank you.
Ilya, that was powerfully inspirational and very, very honest. I have give you all the credit in the world for putting that together and sharing that with us. That's very valuable information. I hope it didn't fall on deaf ears. It certainly didn't fall deaf onto me. That was wonderful. And as I said to you before, I'm sure your children adore you, and I'm sure they don't have any regrets. So don't feel badly. You did your best. You did.
Oh yeah, no, I know they adore me. It's just, I had to come up with some regrets. I couldn't be perfect, right? So.
Well, that's great. You did wonderful. I really appreciate it. So I would hope that kind of spurs on some questions. Do we have any questions from our chat room there, Ranjan?
Dr. Como, before we go to the questions, I'm going to play the video from Stryker.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Go right ahead. Great, thanks. We really do appreciate their sponsoring us. You know, all these things really don't happen without all the industry support that we get.
So I'll start off with the first question that I had, and as well as a couple of the attendees had, and it's meant not for each of you to answer this question, which is, when you are starting out in your career, and I actually like to know even for myself later in life, how do you balance out when do you say no? Like, how do you make the decision of what you say no to? Because the truth is, most shoulder and elbow surgeons, most of us who are on the call or becoming, we want to contribute. And yes, work, the life outside is important, but we are competing with other people on a regular basis. And so if you say no, they may not ask again. So the question becomes, I want Alex, Ilya, April, Dr. Como, all of you to answer the question individually. How do you say no? And how do you make sure that it doesn't come back to haunt you for saying no?
I'll go first. I think you say no very selectively, and I can't tell you when it's right to say no, and if you do say no, I think you're going to try to help take care of that patient, whether it's through a partner or setting something else up. You know, and again, you need to be available. Like, somebody else will do it, but I think you have to know what some of your limitations are. You know, are you best doing 6 cases, or are you best doing 5 cases? You know, we always say we can do one more thing, but really sometimes it's not in our best interest or the patient's best interest.
So Alex, I'm gonna push you a little harder. So you're basically saying you limit clinical activities. What if Dr. Bach or Dr. Cole asks you to do a project and you're not sure you have time to do it? What are you gonna do then?
Then I get my wife involved to tell Dr. Bach, Uncle Bernie, you listen to her, maybe not me. No, but on a serious note, I mean, I think, you know, there are so many hours in the day, and if you agree to do something, you know, we're all committed to doing it to the best to our ability. There is a certain amount of time in the day, and it is okay to say no, but I think you obviously need to be selective. And I know I'm kind of dancing around that question a little bit, but that's really the truth. I mean, I think you need to be honest with yourself, and you can overextend yourself.
April?
So I can just speak from my own experience, and I do give some of my junior colleagues this advice too. I think that it's when you're starting out in your career, I think that you should not say no. And I think because at that point, you're still trying to figure out, you know, where is your niche? Where is your passion? What are the things you actually like? And until you experience them and start doing things, you're not going to know what that is. And I'll tell you, there's some things where I thought I was pretty busy and I thought, okay, I'll do that too. And I went and I met great people who, again, then have helped me in so many ways. I would say that you say yes, but you can say yes, but with this understanding, because I think that you have to still understand your schedule and what you actually can do. Because, you know, if someone asked me to finish something in 2 weeks, the question I would have, I would love to do that, but could you give me 4? Right? So you're saying yes, but you're making it work around your schedule, because I don't want to do a subpar job. I want to do something that actually you want me to do. But you have to also understand, how long is it going to take you to do that? And I might be saying 4 weeks because I know I have a family event that I must go to, or I know I have 2 other book chapters I have to write, so it's whatever your priorities are at that point in time. And then I would say I started saying no later. And this is where I already kind of know where my path is going. And I mean, I'm just going to give an example. I was asked to be a chair of a different department of orthopedics. And I was like, no, that is not an interest of mine. But I mean, that was my first absolute no. But there are other times where you say, could you give me 2 days to think about that? So I would say maybe you stop and think about it and then look at your situation and then decide if you're going to do it or not do it. So maybe, as you get more established, and then you just get busier as you get further in your career, I find. So that would be my answer.
Ilya?
I couldn't agree more. Oh, I'm sorry, Ilya, go right ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I had pretty much the same answer as April. At the beginning of my career, I really didn't say no to anything. I kind of jumped on every opportunity that was given to me. And that's what I was saying when early in the career, I think it's very important to focus on your work, because then you even decide kind of what kind of pathway you want to take, because you don't know when you start until you're in it to really know what you want. And I remember I was writing. I said about research before. I was writing grants, and I was doing academic work. I was trying to develop my practice, but with time, you kind of realize where your strengths lie. And for example, with writing grants, for me, it was a lot of work for very little gain, whether it was a skill level wise in terms of writing grants or whatever it was. I just decided that my time spent on this is not going to bring me the reward that I'm looking for. So I think it's very important early to just dive in and make sure you don't burn any bridges. And then later on, you kind of realize what you want, what you really want, and you realize what works for your family. And then you make more educated decisions, more well-informed decisions. Go ahead, Fran. I'm sorry.
I agree completely. I think in the beginning, I never said no. It was an honor, first of all, for anybody to come to me and ask me, would you write a chapter on this, or would you be involved in this research? It was an honor for me, and I was thrilled. And once you say no, they don't come back. So, and I would not say no for a very, very long time. But a lot of times you're out there with a yes on your lips, and you should be saying no, because I don't really think I can get that done. But you be honest about it. As April said, I'm probably going to need this amount of time, or I started to delegate. Then you get into delegating and you involve other people and you get support for what you're doing. And one thing that I always did, and a piece of advice that I got from a colleague a long time ago, was leave 1 day a week where you had no clinical responsibilities. Now, honestly, a lot of the guys never did that, because that's usually 1 day a week. That's at least 20% less income for you. But I had enough, and I felt that I was financially, it was fine. That gave me my nights. It gave me my weekends. I didn't miss a baseball game, a basketball game, a concert, a tournament. I was there with my son, and that was the most important thing. So 1 day a week, I didn't have any clinical responsibilities, and I wrote my papers. I did my research. I wrote, articles, whatever it is I had to do. I got it done then, putting, lectures together and all that. So it didn't take away from nights and weekends, and it gave me the time to do it. I could have made more money. I have a big enough house. I'm very happy. I didn't need, that wasn't my goal. So that really worked for me. And I would suggest you keep it. Now, when I was in the earlier days, it was a Tuesday. When I moved to another institution, I made it a Friday, and I was a lot less productive on Friday than I was on Tuesdays. But nonetheless, you gotta say yes until you get to your life where you don't need to do it anymore, or you don't want to.
The other
Dr.
thing.
Levine, if you're on the call, could you actually provide your thoughts?
Yeah, hi, everybody. This has been fantastic. Thank you, Fran, for moderating, and all you guys. It's been great. I have two things that I think about with this topic. One is that one book that is on my must-read list that I give to all my fellows and residents is called Essentialism. It's by Greg McKeown, who's at Wharton. And it's a fantastic book. And what you take away from it is exactly what you're hearing in the first 5 years of your career. You probably never want to say no. And you say yes to everything. And then years 5 to 10, where most of the people here are, or beyond, a few of us, you then start saying no. And what the fear is for successful people is that when you say no, it will somehow thwart your upward trajectory. And what you find is as you get busier and more successful, you'll start saying yes to the things that are more mission centric for you, and you'll become more productive, not less. You won't get stuck. You won't get asked less to do things, but you may get asked less to do things that aren't mission centric for you and aren't important for you. And other people will do those things, and you won't miss a beat. So I strongly encourage you to read that book, and it's one of my favorites. The only other point that I make, and I learned this from Jack Flynn, where Jack and I have done a bunch of ICLs on lifelong learning and work-life balance and integration. And one of the principles that I took away from Jack that I now do all the time is that I get my schedule for my children and my spouse for the entire 6 months or 12 months of the year, whatever we can do, but not in a week in advance. You can't cancel surgery next week, but you can definitely cancel surgery in 3 months. So every single basketball game that Claire had last year, I was at, just like Ilya's going all over the world. But you can't do that if you don't prospectively plan for that. And same with your spouse. So that's the best thing we can do as busy people, is to say that's as important or more important than doing one more arthroplasty or one more paper or one more meeting. So those are my 2 pearls. Thanks.
Thank you. One final question from everybody from the panelists. Can each of you comment how much vacation or personal time do they take each year currently? And is this more or less than they did 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
Same amount for me, about 3 weeks, I would say, maybe 4, depending on the year.
Yeah, probably
And-
the same for me, 3 weeks. Sometimes we tag on, we usually tag on things that are attached to the academic things. So we stay a few extra days and make it a family thing. But I would say 2 weeks for travel, and when we spend 1 week at a summer place at the lake.
Alex?
Yeah, don't leave any vacation on the table. Again, it's 3 weeks for me, but again, I'm trying to do some work related things with a family member here and there, which has been very helpful. And I never did that 5 years ago, to be quite honest.
Dr. Como?
I think I have 4 weeks. I always take 2 weeks at Christmas, and I take 2 weeks at the end of the summer. And then that's pretty much what I've done. I think I do that. I think I've done that forever.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for the time and efforts you made for tonight. I know the panelists, you all worked very hard for this. The attendees, myself, we learned a great deal. Thank you very much.
It was
Have a
our
good night.
pleasure. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
You did a great job.
Great panel.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Good
it.
night.
Night.
Nice seeing you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.